Hey guys, if you're enjoying the content I've been putting up, be sure to subscribe so you always know when a new video pops up. Now that we got that part out of the way, let's get into the video. Final Fantasy XIV is a massive game with thousands of hours of content. What I'm going to do here is break down some of the major plot points for those of you who want to know more about Eorzea, but may not have time to experience it all firsthand. This time, we're covering the story of the hunt for the Cardinal Virtue Lamitt during the Healer role questline. In the Crystarium, a dwarf named Giat is hunting a powerful Sin Eater, and she needs a healer, something that you just so happen to be pretty good at. While she's sure your confidence in your abilities isn't misplaced, she'd rather test your skills before she teams up with you. The creature she's after is strong, and she'd rather not find out you bought a level skip off the Mog Station and don't even know what your buttons do during a boss fight, so she takes you to Lakeland to give your skills a trial run. The only way to test the skills of a healer is to give them something to heal, so Giat picks out a large monster and screams out a few choice insults at it before letting it beat her senseless. With that brilliant plan, she may as well have taken you to fight the Sin Eater, because if you sucked at your job, the beast would have killed her just the same. But you bring it down and heal her up well enough, so she decides to bring you on as a partner. And to celebrate, she heads to the Crystarium to get a few drinks, something she does a lot. Back in the Crystarium, Giat drinks to celebrate the birth of your new partnership, and since you aren't useless, it's time to explain the mission. The Sin Eater she's after is one of the Cardinal Virtues called Sophrosine. The Virtues are all Sin Eaters formed from the bodies of the Warriors of Light from the first, and Sophrosine is the virtue formed from the dwarf Lamit. The Council of Elders don't want the disgraced dwarf walking around, reminding people of how she tarnished their reputations, so they gave Giat the task of dealing with her. Even in life, Lamit had never upheld dwarven traditions, going around with her face uncovered and such. I'm sure you already figured this out, but if you haven't, the dwarves of the first are just Lalafell who keep their faces hidden from outsiders by wearing these bearded helmets. Showing your face to someone who's not related to you goes against all of their traditions, and is looked at as dishonorable to all dwarves. Giat is strong enough to deal with Lamit on her own, but the Sin Eater keeps healing itself, which makes killing it a bit rough. Not only that, it keeps resurrecting other Sin Eaters, which is why Giat needed a healer. Your knowledge of healing magic should help you counter Lamit's powers. After a great many drinks, I swear I got alcohol poisoning just by talking to her, she decides that getting you to see Lamit use her powers will help you figure out a way to deal with them. She's heard that Lamit's been seen in Kalusia, so she decides that the two of you should go to a pub in Stilltide to see if anyone's seen anything useful. She probably just wants another drink, which she does get as soon as you get there. However, she does find out that quite a few Sin Eaters have been turning up near Brightcliff. The plan is to go and kill a few Sin Eaters to see if Lamit will show up and revive them. The plan works, and the former dwarf shows up and revives the Sin Eaters you killed. When your eyes lock on the Virtue, the echo shows you the moment Lamit and Arbor first met. He had fought a pack of hobgoblins, and while he had won, he had taken some bad wounds. With her healing skills, she managed to fix him up, but she nearly kills him herself when he mistakes her for a boy. In all fairness, the beards do make it hard to tell with dwarves. I thought Giat was a boy until someone called her, so I can relate with Arbor on this one. Despite that little mishap, the two of them become quite the team. When you wake back up in the present, Giat is throwing some colorful insults at you trying to wake you up. The echo is going to get you killed one day. Fortunately, all Lamit did after she revived the Sin Eaters was float off. Giat has no idea where she went, but she wants to know what happened to you before you plan your next move. Hearing about your strange powers makes the dwarf excited, although she's shocked to hear that Lamit was wearing a helmet when she first left home, and she had saved an adventurer, something that would have improved the image of the dwarven people, not dishonored them like she had heard. There's a lot to ponder, but it'll be better to do it over some drinks, so it's back to the Crystarium you go. Even though you caught a glimpse of Lamit's magic, it did little to help you come up with a way to counter it, but Giat hadn't expected you to figure out how to deal with the Sin Eater that fast anyway. She figures you may get an idea while you work your magic elsewhere, so you head off to do your own thing for a while she does hers. And by that, I mean she orders more drinks. While your exploits do little to help you come up with an idea on how to stop Lamit, Giat has another idea of her own. She wants to see what happens when you try to heal a Sin Eater. She doesn't expect it to work, but learning why it doesn't work for you when it does for Lamit should give you a bit of insight into how the Fallen Dwarf's magic works and how to counter it. The idea is pretty brilliant, to be honest, and the two of you head to Mort Soup to run your tests. The two of you take out a few Sin Eaters, and you try out your magic on one of the ones that Jihad didn't crush so badly that it was hardly recognizable. Dwarf can definitely fight, I'll give her that. The healing does absolutely nothing, just like you expected, mainly because Sin Eaters aren't alive in the traditional sense. They are lifeless husks, made mobile only by the light ether that flows through them, and healing magic doesn't work on dead any more than it works on robots. Which brings up the question of what kind of magic is Lamit using that heals Sin Eaters. Another question is, why didn't she come to revive the ones you just took down? It's like her targets are very specific, which brings up the question of what makes her choose which Sin Eaters to heal and which ones to leave to rot. Between all of the thinking and fighting, Gia gets thirsty, which means it's time for another visit to her favorite bar in the Crystarium, and hopefully a trip to an AA meeting because she really does have a problem. However, she does figure things out when she drinks, so whatever works, I guess. And sure enough, Giat's escapades bear fruit, although she does spill some liquor in the cabinet of curiosity and more bans her for life. While that sucks, she did find out that Lamit was seen last in Rahtika Greatwood, which means if you kill a few Sin Eaters there, she should appear again. That way, you and Giat can actually see how you do fighting her. Giat's fought her on her own before, but having you there with her will help her come up with some new strategies for the contest, even though you can't kill her as long as she keeps healing. Not surprisingly, Giat is a big fan of the people in Slitherbow, mainly because of the wine they make. They told her that Lamit was seen in the east, so you head out into the forest and smash a few Sin Eaters to draw her out. She indeed shows up, but strangely enough she only heals one of the Sin Eaters that you took down, while leaving the other one where it was. You pummel the revived eater, but Lamit simply heals it again. Trying a new tactic, you fight Lamit herself while Giat faces off against the lesser Sin Eater. You take her down, but it's only temporary. She resurrects herself, and at the worst possible time, the echo draws you into Lamit's past. You see Lamit, Ardbert, Silva, and Render Ray facing down the guardian of a Ronkan temple. They bring down the creature, and you find out that Lamit was hunting down a very special healing magic known only to the Ronkan people. The magic is given to her in the form of a crystal, and with it, she believes that she can save her sister. When you wake back up, Giat gives you some advice that you should really take. While your ability to see into the past is cool, it's probably better to do it when you're not in the middle of a fight. Lucky for you, she was able to drive Lamit off while keeping you alive. At least you did learn that the reason Lamit's magic is different from yours likely has something to do with what she got from the Ronkan ruins. However, Giat thinks it's best that the two of you discuss things over a strong drink. She also thinks it's a good idea to check her village's records to see if they have any information on Lamit's sister, and she plans on finding out a bit more about those Ronkan ruins to hopefully find out what powers Lamit found there, as well as a way to counter them. When you meet back up with her in the Crystarium, Giat has indeed been reading a lot about ancient Ronkan civilizations, but she hasn't found anything about Lamit's magic. She did find out that Lamit's sister would have been in Tamra, Giat's hometown. She tells you to meet her there, although she forgets to tell you how to get there. Fortunately, this won't be your first trip to the Dwarf City, and you know your way around. The place Giat wants to show you is an old tunnel system in the back of the city. When she opens it, a Sin Eater comes flying out, but it was nothing she couldn't deal with. Before the flood that destroyed the first, sick dwarves lived in the tunnels. A disease called stone blight had started spreading through the population and began turning people into stone. No one knew where it came from or how to cure it, but it was contagious, so they locked the infected dwarves in the blight warrens. The story activates the echo, giving you a vision of Lamit, Ardbert, and the rest of the crew talking to the dwarven elder after Lamit had returned from the Ronkan ruins with her magic. It had worked, and she managed to heal her sister and the others afflicted with the illness. However, it was against dwarven law to enter the blight warren, and having broken multiple rules beforehand, the elder exiles Lamit. Ardbert gets angry, but Lamit accepts the judgment of her people. She'd expected this to happen when she had first left home, and she was okay with it. No longer a dwarf, she removes her helmet, but to her surprise, her sister and the other dwarf she healed decide to leave as well. Because, while they had been locked in the blight warrens, they had removed their helmets so they could breathe easier. Having broken the rules too, they brand themselves the exiles and head off into the world with their faces bare. Ardbert asks if Lamit is sure that she's okay with this because he's more than willing to beat up the elders for her. Since he's gotten so much stronger than he was when she'd found him on the side of the road, he could actually do it, but she doesn't want him to. There's more important things on her mind. They have no idea what started the disease, but she believes that it may be the same creature that they've been dealing with, the Shadow Keeper. And if it takes giving up her home to save her people from that monster, she's more than willing to do it. When you wake back up, you find that Jihad's Sin Eater wasn't dead at all, so she had to deal with it again. Funny enough, she had already figured that Lamit had cured Stone Blight, but knowing that she had saved them from the illness and had been exiled anyway seems to really bother the dwarf, and she leaves in silence, asking for you to leave her alone with her thoughts for a moment. When you get back together, the first thing you realize is that this is the first time Jihad doesn't greet you with a snarky comment, so you pick up the slack, greeting her with an insult of your own that snaps her out of her stupor. It also reminds her of the news that she has about Lamit. The Sin Eater that she had killed in the Blight Warrens caused Lamit to show up and revive it. Seeing that made her realize how Lamit was choosing which eaters to revive. The dwarves that Lamit had cured had left Tamra, and while the village wasn't damaged by the flood, the dwarves who left wouldn't have been so lucky, which means they became Sin Eaters, and Lamit is still healing the same people who she had fought to save when she was alive. All of this gives Jihad an idea. A stupid one, but an idea nonetheless. The last time Lamit saw those dwarves, they weren't wearing helmets, so since her Sin Eater form is reacting off of instinct and not actually thinking, if you put a dwarven helmet on the eaters, Lamit may not recognize them, and if she doesn't recognize them, she won't heal them. This has got to be the stupidest idea ever, which means it might actually work, or get you killed. However, there's no telling whether putting a helmet on Lamit's head will stop her from healing herself, but you won't know until you try, and it's not like you have any better ideas anyway. It won't take long for you to get your opportunity to test this little theory either, since Lamit was recently seen in the area. All you have to do is take down a few Sin Eaters, and she's bound to show up. You deal with some eaters while Jihad goes to grab some helmets. Then it's time to wait. Sure enough, Lamit shows up, and after telling you to try to avoid dozing off this time, the two of you attack. Lamit resurrects the fallen Sin Eater, but the ridiculous plan of slapping a helmet on the creature's head actually stops her from healing him. She summons more and more Sin Eaters, but Jihad brought a lot of helmets. When the final eater falls, Jihad charges in to slap a helm on Lamit's head, but the mage catches her with a spell, knocking her down and destroying the last helmet. But it isn't the last helmet at all. Jihad does have one more. Knowing what it'll cost her though, Jihad charges in, removing her own helmet and placing it on Lamit's head. The trick works, and Lamit does stop healing herself. However, it's at that moment that you remember that Lamit had reached max level long before she died and has quite a few tricks up her sleeve. But in the end, the pair of you bring her down once and for all, causing her to explode and leave behind the very crystal she'd found in the Ronkin ruins. Touching it causes Lamit's memories to manifest for you and Jihad, claiming that she broke tradition only because it was the only way to save her sister and her people. Seeing the truth of Lamit's past and why she made her choices causes Jihad to regret the way she had judged the other woman before. Knowing that she suffered so much for her people causes Jihad to have a new respect for the former warrior of darkness, and a greater joy for finally being able to allow the woman to rest. With the mission completed, it's time for Jihad to do what she does best, and head back to the Crystarium for a drink. And since she can never go home now that she removed her helmet in front of you, she decides to give Lamit's way a try, and live her life as an exile. She thinks it's only fair, since the elder who had exiled Lamit so long ago was Jihad's great-grandfather. This concludes the story of the Cardinal Virtue Lamitt. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on the next video.